Houston's Jarace Walker looks like a seamless fit for the modern game. This is Floor and Ceiling, let's break him down. Walker stands 6'8" with an NBA-ready frame at 240 pounds and a 7'2" wingspan. The potential top 5 pick gets the most out of all of these tools, starting on the offensive end. The most important thing here is Walker's versatility. He can play both front court positions and fulfill a variety of roles that every team in the NBA is looking for. I love that the Houston freshman is already so comfortable and quick at making decisions in tight situations. Walker can equally create and finish plays. We're seeing some of that here. Walker is able to scan the floor and make accurate passes out of a live dribble. He has 65 assists in 36 games, which is pretty solid, and with a low turnover rate. Over the last few years, we've seen how important it is for teams to have a big that can play in the middle of the floor out of pick and rolls. Walker is sort of the culmination of the game's evolution in this sense, as he already shows such a high level of feel in these situations for a 19-year-old. The Houston forward can dive to the rim and find his teammates, but he's also effective when he pops to the perimeter and then gets ahead of steam. However, Walker can also be deployed as a finisher in these contexts. Houston played him at the 5 this year quite often, which meant that Jarace operated as the roll man a fair bit. In the NBA, I'd expect these reps to go up even more. At 6'8", 240 pounds, Walker has a jacked, wide frame, which honestly he needs to learn how to use more effectively, as we'll dive into. Still, I've always lauded on here that bigs or forwards with really well-rounded skill sets have the best chance of succeeding in today's NBA. They need that passing and ball handling, but on top of that, they also have to do the basic, traditional things too, if you will. Walker is just as efficient in a more simple role. We saw that quite often in Houston's game against Wichita State, with the freshman playing and cutting around the dunker spot to score easy buckets. If we pair that simplicity with Walker's quick decision-making, he becomes really dangerous. Even now, we've seen Walker create advantages on the offensive side of the ball in many ways. It's also crucial to note that these are coming in half-court settings for the most part, which can be even tougher for young prospects because of the nature of the college game. Walker is also doing this in a top team like Houston. With more spacing, better shooting, plus the natural development that will take place, I'm really confident that Walker is a dangerous Swiss Army knife that is almost tailor-made to play the 4, but especially the small ball 5 at the next level. Getting into his scoring, this first area will be directly linked to Walker's work out of the pick and roll. The Houston forward will be asked to make decisions out of short rolls at the next level, so this floater is super important for him. Walker hasn't always had the room to dive long to the basket at the college level, so this little push shot that he has in his bag is really useful. I trust it because Walker has flashed it even going back to his high school days at IMG Academy. So whether he's coming out of a screen as the big, or simply hovering around the basket in that dunker spot, or even attacking a closeout, I think Walker's role will require him to keep turning to this floater pretty often. Like I hinted at earlier though, I do believe that the AAC Rookie of the Year needs to continue growing his assertiveness around the basket. Walker should be a wrecking ball of a forward, but he's only taken 100 shots at the rim, and he takes less than 3 free throws per game. The thing is, the Houston freshman is a pretty good finisher. He makes 67% of his shots at the rim, so it's the volume that needs to go up. Part of this is contextual, like I've been alluding to. Sometimes Walker had no choice but to take these floaters at Houston because broadly speaking, there's no real spacing in the NCAA. A lot of the time though, it is Walker that tends to shy away from contact. He has the tools to dominate, but right now, plenty of room for improvement here. Too often, Walker will stop a few feet short of the basket, and to me, I think he's settling when he does this. Walker has touch, but it's not incredible or anything yet. His efficiency at Houston has been alright, but his 53% true shooting percentage is definitely improvable. So even though this shot is going to be important, I want to see Walker use his physical tools more often to get closer and either score with his power or draw the foul. Over the next few months, as we really head into the pre-draft process and later Walker's rookie season, I'm hoping to see the 19-year-old forward build on his finishing. Outside of the floater, which he risks relying on to an excess, he's surprisingly unwilling to play through contact or in traffic at times. I'm looking for him to become more of an above-the-rim finisher. For me, there's no reason why he should be trying these types of scoop finishes except on rare occasions. Most of the time, Walker is going to have the physical advantage in terms of strength and speed, and in the future, also the handle in theory. But for now, his ball handling is better when contained to 1 or 2 dribbles. Otherwise, Walker isn't too creative or flexible with the ball. And looking ahead, I also think he has some work to do with his left hand. Ideally, this looks like what I want. Walker faces up his man, plays out of jab steps into the baseline drive, and gets the and one. Or even in these situations, Walker isn't necessarily scoring, but he's getting to the charity stripe, which he badly needs to do more of. Walker only shoots 66% from the line, and we'll get into his shooting in just a bit, but I think he has some touch, and the problem is he's only shot 80 free throws all season. I'll also be curious to see at the next level if Walker is given more of a chance to show off his grab-and-go game in transition. Outside of his floaters and good finishing at the rim, with the caveat being that his volume must increase, Walker's scoring is fairly limited at this point in time. He's not bad here, but he scored 11 points per game with room for his efficiency to improve. I think the 3 is going to be particularly important for Walker for many reasons. Among them, he's going to be playing out of screens so much that he needs to be able to both roll and pop. That opens up his passing, his floater game, and his team's offense. On paper, Walker was just about passable from 3 this season. He made a bit under 35% of his trays, but that was only on 35 total makes. As we're seeing here, the Houston freshman cannot create his own 3-ball. Only one of his 3s this season was unassisted, so that also means Walker will be very reliant on being set up, at least early on. That's why more so than pull-up 3s right now, I'm more concerned that he drills these open, stationary 3s. Walker's shot is still being worked on. The mechanics changed from his high school days to Houston, with his set point and range of motion being tweaked. I'd expect more changes to come, so maybe it takes a few seasons, but I do think Walker will at least be an alright 3-point shooter. Defenders are not going to be rushing at him, so he'll be able to set his feet and take his time from the perimeter early on. For now though, I cannot emphasize enough how these types of 3s are the shots Walker has to see going in. But even right now, Walker is able to offset his lack of versatile scoring to a certain degree. Some of these clips here show how he attacks closeouts, which I do think is important to feature in the case that his 3 really comes around. Otherwise, I think some of these reps are still translatable to short rolls, face-ups, or when he gets diving to the basket. Walker isn't a well-rounded scorer, but he is a well-rounded offensive player. Here he creates the 3 at first, and then he's there to vacuum in the offensive rebound. And at IMG Academy, Walker showed some really enticing flashes. Obviously it's at a lower level, but we've got to keep in mind that Walker will keep improving. After all, we're talking about a 19-year-old for a high college level team who's making NBA level reads and pitching in with all types of skills it takes to win. So sure, Walker doesn't score too many 3s right now. He only scored more than 2 triples in 3 of his 36 games, but he's already pretty good at creating them for others. It's not just that Walker is reading the floor with the savvy of a guard at times, he's also getting creative with his execution. The 5-star recruit already understands how to skip passes over a defense, and this is such a valuable commodity in the NBA. Walker can do this off a standstill or in motion, and then he's also an imposing rebounder who crashes the board on both ends. The Houston freshman plays like anything but a first-year player. He's got a grown man's physique, and I don't anticipate him having any trouble adapting to the NBA from a strength standpoint. His physicality will have to rev up, but that's more linked with his finishing rather than with his rebounding. Walker snatches about 7 boards a game, with 2 of them coming on the offensive glass. Wrapping up Walker's offensive game, the long story short is that he's incredibly versatile with his flashes of finishing and three-point shooting, even if both do have different questions around them. And then his playmaking is incredible, with how he can create for others in multiple ways, crash the boards, and also create events on defense like we'll dive into. But the Cougars forward's self-creation is very limited. You can't count on Walker to create for himself off the bounce really right now, but if he ever gets to the point where his handle is advanced enough to comfortably rise into a pull-up off one or more moves, then watch out. Right now, this all looks a little unnatural to him. Still, I really wouldn't count out a Pascal Siakam-like developmental curve where Walker really improves as a scorer. His feel as a decision maker is already really high, and it's clear that his shot is a point of emphasis. On the defensive side of the basketball, I'm super high on Jarace Walker. Much like his offense, Walker's defense is a perfect fit for modern basketball with his versatility and size. He can defend inside out, and he really excelled at protecting the rim in Houston. Walker had 46 blocks in 36 games, often playing the small ball 5 for the Cougars. Some of his blocks could be pretty violent. Walker is so explosive off 2 feet, usually coming in with his right hand, but he's definitely shown glimpses of using his left to get rejections too. Walker has good timing and anticipation, and he's truly a powerful athlete with his speed and strength that allows him to get quick lift off the floor. In the NBA, I expect him to be effective at both the 4 and the 5. One of the most important and recurring things then that Walker will have to face is the pick and roll. The NBA is a copycat league, so when ball screens are as heavy as they are right now, it's going to be just about every team, guard and big, that Walker will be defending. As is the case with most centers, there's going to be a relatively steep adjustment curve from college to the NBA. For instance, the NCAA features a lot of hard hedges that the NBA doesn't. But for the most part as a freshman, I thought Walker displayed some really encouraging instincts defending the pick and roll as the big man. He understands when to tag and recover, and he's big and long enough to help and be disruptive around loose passes or mistimed rolls. I trust Walker to play as the low man, and I would go so far as to say that he's one of the most developed prospects in recent memory when it comes to his versatility on both sides of the pick and roll. Even though I expect the Houston freshman to do most of his defensive damage inside, Walker should be more than fine stepping out to the perimeter. The 6'8" forward is built like a muscular lineman, but he moves around really well, and his 7'2" wingspan is always a factor. I think the key to how reliable Walker is on the perimeter is his footwork. His short, choppy steps allow him to keep up with smaller and, in theory, faster guards. So far though, speed hasn't really been a mismatch for Walker. I love his technique sliding. He's so fluid, moving sideways and backwards without being put under stress. Is he a perfect defender? Obviously not, but no one is at 19 years old. There's some basic improvement points that just about every prospect has. Walker can bite on up fakes sometimes, and maybe he has to stay more rooted to the floor, especially when he's at the 5. I also think that he can be guilty of defending too upright, which hasn't been a consistent issue, but I wonder how he holds up at first over an 82-game season against better guards in more space. Overall, I'm truly feeling incredibly positive about Walker's defense. His versatility on this end complements his varied skill set on the other side of the basketball. He's able to slide up and down positions and play in the paint, but also on the perimeter. And whenever he's on the floor, he's making plays. As we roll towards draft season, I think Jarace Walker is making a top 3 case. Now, I do think it's more likely that he'll end up as a top 5 pick on my big board, but that's because I'm just fascinated by everything that Walker brings. Starting on offense, well, he's not exactly a versatile scorer, but he is a versatile enough offensive player. By that, I mean that his passing, his rebounding, his screening, the way he runs the floor, just about everything adds up over the course of a game, and Walker is a winning player who you can trust to make right decisions in tight moments. Then, as we look towards the other end of the floor, for me, one of the things that I love the most about Walker is that you can trust him just about everywhere. He can play inside the paint near the rim, but he can also be out on the perimeter. And for me, the biggest thing is he's doing this on both ends. Walker projects as a highly versatile defender. He's not really someone who's going to go out and get his own bucket, but he will add to your team in so many other ways. And for me, that's why I have him right now as pushing up into my top 5 and potentially higher. As always, if you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like, make sure to leave a comment telling me what you think of Jarace Walker, and as always, if you enjoy the channel, make sure to subscribe. Take care, and I'll catch you guys next time.